Let me get my cheat sheet ready. Whew. I figured I'd get the ball rolling by opening up about how grateful I am to be here tonight. I really am excited because it is my first time publicly speaking. However, I'm also equally overwhelmed with fear, terror, anxiety, and other forms of stage fright. Ooh. Oh, I can't see this.
You need to step close to the mic. Step close to the mic.
Okay. Oh, so if I ball into the fetal position and begin to cry in front of all of you, you all know as to why. But truly, I really am grateful to be here tonight. And that's kind of what I came here to talk about, being here tonight. No, I'm not talking about the Angus barn, even though this place is amazing. I'm talking about being on this earth. We all tend to live our lives like we have some sort of confidential grasp on what our future will bring. But the truth is, our life's events are set up like dominoes, whereas one small incident can cascade our life into complete disarray. That one event could be a phone call. It could be a trip to the doctor. It could be a letter from your company or a ring on the doorbell. One small incident can toy with your future by leading one event to another. My single event took place in the year of 2018. It was my sophomore year of high school. I remember my routine consisting of waking up, going to class, attending marching band practice, and going to work at the local grocery store. I didn't know it at the time, but I was the luckiest kid in the world. The amount of freedom I had was indescribable. I didn't know that I was taking it all for advantage. Sorry. In the closing months of that year,
You're good.
In the close, sorry. In the closing months of that year, my body began to deteriorate. Lumps developed in my neck. I would wake up covered in sweat, and I was exhausted. My stomach and spleen began to protrude, and it became very difficult to breathe. Marching band practice became grueling, to the extent where I would have to sit out because of the fatigue. My managers at work would notice that I was beginning to slack, or not slack, but they would get on to me because I was physically unable to keep up with the pace that I had previously set for myself. Was this normal? I thought to myself. I insisted to my parents that something was wrong. My mom pointed out the color of my skin. She said, "You look paler than your usual pasty self." Pop-Tart frosting pasty. My father pointed out my distended stomach. But his words were more along the line of, "You look like you're hitting your second or third trimester." I even went to my brother about the lumps in my neck. But he charmed me with this dazzling response. "I don't know, man. I think you just got a deep neck." That one made me feel great. My dad decided to take me to the doctor. We thought we were coming in for something along the lines of mono, but when we found ourselves in the waiting lobby for an X-ray, we began to have our doubts. After the X-ray was taken, we had to wait for blood test results to come back. While we were waiting, we went to go and decide to get breakfast. During breakfast, my dad received a phone call, and he stepped out of the huddle house, and after you could hear him, after the long line of yeps and uh-huhs, he came back in, took me out, and said, "Son, you know I love you. That's why I'm not going to sugarcoat anything. They think you have leukemia. I, of course, didn't have an immediate response, partly because I didn't even know what leukemia was. In what kind of world should a person know the name of such a horrific disease? It was at that moment, on December 31st, when that date became so kindred to me. Not only was it the day I was diagnosed with cancer, but it was also the day that marked the 10-year anniversary of my biological parents' death. I had faced adversity before. I thought, why must I, of all people, face it again? What did I do to deserve any of this? And just like that, my world spiraled into a world of chaos, all with a single phone call. I felt like God was toying with my life like a Jacob's ladder. Before I had time to blink, I was being introduced to oncologists, nurses, and physicians, and other hospital staff. I was being hooked up to machines that I didn't know what they did. Fast forwarding to the March of 2019, I went to my regularly scheduled clinic appointment. That was when I was told that I would need a bone marrow transplant. My leukemia had broken my blood-brain barrier, which would mean that I would need intense chemotherapy and radiation in order to have a chance to survive. The thing about a bone marrow transplant is that once it is required, it requires so much of the recipient, but not only of that, it requires so much everyone involved in the recipient's life. In order to be, for example, in order to be eligible for a bone marrow transplant, a parent must be present for at least 24 hours a day. That wouldn't be such an issue if transplant didn't take place in Durham while my family resided in Asheville. Consequently, my one big family was forced to split into two, with my mother and I in Durham and my father and siblings in Asheville. Whenever given the opportunity, my father would usually visit the hospital on the weekends, giving my mother a chance to rest and take refuge in the Ronald McDonald House. The Ronald McDonald House provided the ends needed to come together in order for my family to stay as one. It became a place, it became a safe haven for my family to come together. It became a place of hope after transplant, with families of similar situations coming together to uplift one another. If there was good news for a certain family, we celebrated. If there was bad news, we all prayed. In a way, the Ronald McDonald House turned numerous families into one. Without this wonderful place that provided so much for my family and I don't know where I would stand today. From the scrumptious volunteer meals provided to the day-to-day activities held after dinner, I truly felt like I was part of a bigger family, a community that understood what it was like to have life throw you curveballs. There was no comparing it to anything else. I developed a habit of smiling and waving to everyone I saw, regardless of whether or not I knew them. Under the roof of the RMH, you could look at someone who could be a complete stranger in the eye and have an idea of what they were going through. They, in turn, could do the same. Everyone was there for one another. It was all like they were there for one another at a moment's notice. I will never forget what the RMH has provided for my family and I. Much more than food on our plates and a bed to sleep on. It provided a community and an everlasting perspective that would remind me to take other people's accounts and situations. Oh, I said that backwards. Thank you. to take other people's situations into account. Once again, and I cannot say it enough, thank you.
Love you.
I wish I didn't stutter.
You're a good man. I want you to wave at him.